Hello again, friends. Today we have the very first request of the new year. That honor goes to my favorite Tag. Tag is also usually my first commenter as well. Only twice has Brick's journey gotten in a tiny bit faster. I don't know how. Anyway, to my wonderful friend Tag, here for you is the poorly pronounced story of the Legend of Knockgrafton. There was once a poor man who lived in the fertile glen of Aherlow, at the foot of the gloomy Galtee Mountains. Aherlow is a village in Ireland, north of Cork and southeast of Limerick. Here's a map. And he had a great hump on his back. He looked just as if his body had been rolled up and placed upon his shoulders, and his head was pressed down with the weight of so much that his chin, when he was sitting, used to rest upon his knees for support. That is a disturbing mental image. Oh my goodness, poor kid. The country people were rather shy of meeting him in any lonesome place, for though poor creature, he was as harmless and as inoffensive as a newborn infant. Yet his deformity was so great that he scarcely appeared to be a human creature, and some ill-minded persons had set strange stories about him afloat. He kind of reminds me of a certain bell ringer. He was said to have a great knowledge of herbs and charms, but certain it was that he had a mighty skillful hand in plaiting straw and rushes into hats and baskets, which was the way he made his livelihood. Okay, well, sure, he's pretty fancy, but could he weave them underwater? Lusmore, for that was his nickname, put upon him by reason of his always wearing a spring of the fairy cap or lusmore in his little straw hat, would ever get a higher penny for his plaited work than anyone else, and perchance that was the reason why someone, out of envy, had circulated the strange stories about him. Be that as it may, it happened that he was returning one evening from the pretty town of Cahir towards Capa, and as little Lusmore walked very slowly, on account of the great hump upon his back, it was quite dark when he came to the old moat of Knockgrafton, which stood on the right-hand side of the road. Tired and weary was he, and no ways comfortable in his own mind at thinking how much further he had to travel, and that he should be walking all the night. So he sat down under the moat to rest himself, and began looking mournfully enough upon the moon. So I know I was wondering how he sat under a moat, unless it was, to basket weave, but the moat of Knockgrafton is actually a tumulus, and most of us know a tumulus by the name of a barrow, or burial mound. If none of that rings a bell, it's a structure covered by earth so that it looks like a small hill. Then those who have passed are laid to rest inside. Presently there rose a wild strain of unearthly melody upon the ear of little Lusmore. He listened, and he thought that he had never heard such ravishing music before. It was like the sound of many voices, each mingling and blending with the other so strangely that they seemed to be one, though all singing different strains, and the words of the song were these: De lune de mor, 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 de lune de mor. When there would be a moment's pause, and then the round of melody went on again. Ha! I wonder if he's going to a dead man's party.
Going to a party with no one still alive.
Lusmore listened attentively, scarcely drawing his breath, lest he might lose the slightest note. He now plainly perceived that the singing was within the moat, and though at first it had charmed him so much, he began to get tired of hearing the same round sung over and over, so often without any change. So, availing himself of the pause when the De Lune de Mor had been sung 3 times, he took up the tune and raised it with the words, August de Carden, and then went on singing with the voices in the side of the moat. De lune de more, finishing the melody when the pause came again with August de Carden. De lune de more, de lune de more, de lune de more, August de Carden. De lune de more, de lune de more, de lune de more, August de Carden. The fairies within Knockgrafton, for the song was a fairy melody, when they heard this addition to the tune, were so much delighted that, with instant resolve, it was determined to bring the mortal among them, whose musical skill so far exceeded theirs. And he was never heard from again. Oh, wait, no. There's more writing. And little Lusmore was conveyed into their company with the eddying speed of a whirlwind. Glorious to behold was the sight that burst upon him as he came down through the moat, twirling round and round with the lightness of a straw to the sweetest music that kept time to his motion. The greatest honor was then paid him, for he was put above all the musicians, and he had servants tending upon him, and everything to his heart's content, and a hearty welcome to all. And, in short, he was made as much as if he had been the first man in the land. Presently Lusmore saw a great consultation going forward among the fairies, and, notwithstanding all their civility, he felt very much frightened, until one, stepping out from the rest, came up to him and said, Lusmore, Lusmore, doubt not nor deplore, for the hump which you bore on your back is no more. Look down on the floor and view it, Lusmore. With these words were said, little Lusmore felt himself so light and so happy that he thought he could have bounded at one jump over the moon, like the cow in the history of the cat and the fiddle. You know, not many people know that was a true story. And he saw, with inexpressible pleasure, his hump tumble down upon the ground from his shoulders. And then he tried to lift up his head, and he did so with becoming caution, fearing that he might knock it against the ceiling of the grand hall. Where he was, he looked round and round again with greatest wonder and delight upon everything which appeared more and more beautiful. And overpowered at beholding such a resplendent scene, his head grew dizzy, and his eyesight became dim. There she stood in the doorway, I heard a mission bell, and I was thinking to myself I should probably go back to the story. Yes, right, sorry. At last he fell into a sound sleep, and when he awoke, he found that it was broad daylight. The sun was shining brightly and the birds singing sweetly, and that he was lying just at the foot of the moat of Knockgrafton, and with the cows and sheep grazing peacefully round him. The first thing little Lusmore did, after saying his prayers, was to put his hand behind to feel for his hump. But no sign of one was there on his back, and he looked at himself with great pride, for he had now become a well-shaped, dapper little fellow, and more than that, found himself in a full suit of new clothes, which he concluded the fairies had made for him. Oh, he better say thank you. Fairies are not to be trifled with. Towards Papa he went, stepping out as lightly and springing at every step as if he had been all his life a dancing master. Not a creature who met Lusmore knew him without his hump, and he had a great work to persuade everyone that he was the same man. In truth, he was not, so far as outward appearance went. Of course, it was not long before the story of Lusmore's hump got about, and a great wonder was made of it. Through the country, for miles round, it was the talk of everyone, high and low. Man loses hump. News at 11. One morning, Lusmore was sitting contentedly enough at his cabin door. Up came an old woman to him, and asked him if he could direct her to Capa. "I need give you no directions, my good woman," said Lusmore, "for this is Capa. And whom may you want here?" "I have come," said the woman, "out of Deasy's country, in the county of Waterford, looking after one Lusmore, who, I have heard tell, had his hump taken off by the fairies, and there is a son of a gossip of mine who has got a hump on him that will be his death, and maybe, if he could use the same charm as Lusmore, the hump may be taken off him. And now I have told you the reason of my coming so far, 'tis to find out about this charm, if I can." So by calling the other woman a gossip, is that a good thing or a bad one? Lusmore, who was ever a good-natured little fellow, told the woman all the particulars, how he had raised the tune for the fairies at Knockgrafton, how his hump had been removed from his shoulders, and how he had got a new suit full of clothes in the bargain. The woman thanked him very much, and then went away quite happy and easy in her own mind. When she came back to her gossip's house in the county of Waterford, she told her everything that Lusmore had said, and they put the little humpback man, who was a peevish and cunning creature from his birth, upon a cart, and took him all the way across the country.
We're merrily, 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 merrily on our way to nowhere. It won't take you long.
It was a long journey, but they did not care for that, so the hump was taken from off him, and they brought him just at nightfall, and left him under the old moat of Knockgrafton. "Here you go, kid. Hope the fairies can help you. Peace out!" Jack Madden, for that was the humpy man's name, had not been sitting there long when he heard the tune going on within the moat, much sweeter than before, for the fairies were singing it the way Lusmore had settled their music for them, and the song was going on. "De lunde mor, de lunde mor, de lunde mor, Augusti Collen," without ever stopping. Jack Madden, who was in a very great hurry to get quit of his hump, never thought of waiting until the fairies had done, or watching for a fit opportunity to raise the tune higher again than Lusmore had. So having heard them sing it over 7 times without stopping, out he bawls, never minding the time or the humour of the tune, or how he could bring his words in properly. "Augusta Dardin, Augusta Henna," thinking that if one day was good, 2 were better, and that if Lusmore had 1 new suit of clothes given, he could have 2. No sooner had the words passed his lips than he was taken up and whisked into the moat with prodigious force, and the fairies came crowding around him with a great anger, screeching and screaming and roaring out, "Who spoiled our tune? Who spoiled our tune?" And one stepped up to him, above all the rest, and said, "Jack Madden! Jack Madden! Your words came so bad in, the tune we felt glad in, this castle you're had in, that your life we may sadden. Here's 2 humps for Jack Madden." And 20 of the strongest fairies brought Lusmore's hump and put it down upon poor Jack's back over his own, where it became fixed on firmly as if it were nailed on with 12 penny nails by the best carpenter that ever drove one. Out of their castle they then kicked him, and in the morning, when Jack Madden's mother and her gossip came to look after their little man, they found him half dead, lying at the foot of the moat, with the other hump upon his back. Well, to be sure, how they did look at each other. But they were afraid to say anything, lest a hump might be put on their own shoulders. Home they brought the unlucky Jack Madden with them, as downcast in their hearts and their looks as ever 2 gossips were, and, what through the weight of his other hump and the long journey, he died soon after, leaving, they say, his heavy curse to anyone who would go to listen to the fairy tunes again. My, that took a turn. But I did warn you, fairies are not to be trifled with. These days people think of lovely little things with dragonfly wings and bell-like voices. But the Fae folk came in all forms and mostly only looked at mortals as playthings. They could be nice to be sure, but we are like little bugs to them. It was just as likely they would crush us and think nothing of it. Always show great respect and a little fear to the Fae. Welp, it's that time when I ask you to like, share, and subscribe. I mean, I say this all the time, and I have no idea if it does any good, but I'm going to try it again anyway. Sadly, we've actually been losing subscribers rather than gaining them, so maybe y'all could help me out a little with the liking and the sharing and the subscribing and the commenting and the other things that the algorithm really, 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 really likes. Please? I mean, there's a notification bell. It makes a nice ding sound. At least mine does. Also, I would like to thank Pixabay.com because through all of my videos for the last 2 years, they have been there to help me with songs and images and backgrounds and just wonderful contributors. If you would like to support me on Patreon, there is a link below. There is also a link below to Facebook and Instagram. I kind of sometimes do things there. Maybe. Ish. Almost. And I need your opinion. Some people have thought that maybe I should start a new video series called Sleepy Time with Artie, where I just read stories in my lovely, apparently soothing voice, which I'm pretty sure is a nice euphemism for boring. But if you would like me to read you bedtime stories so that you can go to sleep without adding in any sound effects or clips or anything, say so in the comments, and we'll think about doing that. Yeah, I think that's about it. Thank you for being here with me. Please, please, please come back again. And now, a special thank you for my Patreon friends.